That's a nice segue into what we do here today.
Yep.
Was how difficult it was to get metrics out of the DMS or the CRM or whatever tools we were using. They'd all have this library of reports that were almost had part of what you were looking for, and it would take hours to get the information out and then format it in a way that was useful. And you quickly see why it doesn't get done if you don't have the right tools.
Welcome to the One Gang Worldwide podcast, your ultimate ride into the world of motorcycles. Visit cyclesworldwide.com, where we offer a completely free marketplace for everything motorcycles. Join our One Gang community where you can connect, share info, and swap stories with riders from all over the world. Join for free at cyclesworldwide.com and be a part of the One Gang community right now. Hey, One Gang, today we're sitting down with someone who helps dealerships understand what's actually happening behind the numbers. Pete Carusone is the president and CEO of Vision AST, a platform used across automotive and power sports to turn confusion into clarity. This isn't a conversation about spreadsheets. It's about decisions, pressure, and the lessons learned from spending years inside dealerships. Peter, welcome to the show. We are so glad to have you, man.
Glad to be here. Appreciate the invite.
Pete, thanks for coming on, buddy. What we do is we start the show off with our break the ice section, loosen the mood up a little bit before we get into numbers and statistics going forwards. Let's start with the first one. Coffee, tea, or something stronger? What usually in your cup to start the day?
To start the day, it is leaning more toward tea than coffee. I don't know. I've lost a taste for coffee. Can't explain it. Just don't like it anymore.
And I find that happening more and more from people as we talk to them. Right, man? A lot of people are switching to tea and coffee.
Yep.
Early mornings or late nights? When are you actually at your best?
Early mornings, for sure. I can't make it past 9 o'clock unless I'm on my feet. Once I sit down, I'm done.
Yeah, they say 50s is the new 30s, except when it hits 9 o'clock. So.
Okay.
All right. When you're driving, are you listening to music, podcasts, or total silence?
The morning starts with podcasts. Try to stay away from the news the best I can because I want to be in a good mood to start the day. Then some music at night.
Okay, good. Are you more organized on paper, on screen, or in your head?
In my head.
Yeah, okay. That's old school stuff, yeah. What's something you're oddly particular about that would surprise people?
Around the house, everything has its place and it needs to be there. Everyone that lives with me knows that. I'm very tidy and neat and need everything where it belongs.
I like that.
Have you heard of that French term, mise en place?
Mise en place? No.
It's in the culinary world, but it's French. It's a French term for everything in its place and a place for everything. Or that might be reversed, but that sounds like your house.
It is, without question. Drive everyone crazy.
Yeah, but it's good to be organized.
Yes.
If you had a completely free day with zero responsibilities, how are you spending it?
I'm going to spend some time outside in the woods, probably in the mountains, in search of a good view. Play a little guitar when I get home. Now I can hop in the hot tub. I got a hot tub now, so I could see the hot tub coming into play and then jamming on my guitar for a few hours.
And for the listeners, there's a couple inches of snow in the background behind Pete right now.
Yeah, more to come.
If you could have dinner with one person, dead or alive, who are you breaking bread with?
Oh, I like that question. I think it would be George Washington.
George Washington, nice. Okay, good one.
Yeah, I'd like to understand the struggles and the decisions he had to make when talking about having your back against the wall. That guy had his back against the wall. So I'd like to see how he made those decisions.
Definitely.
Great answer. Great answer.
Talking about crossing the Delaware.
Speaking of your guitar playing, what's one band or artist that puts you in a better mood?
That one. Fish. I'm a Fish fan. I'm in upstate northern New York. So when they were a regional band out of Vermont, I was high school, college, and they were always in the neighborhood.
Nice.
That immediately brings me back to those days.
That's cool. Okay. Favorite car of all time and favorite motorcycle of all time?
My favorite car is a Mercedes-Benz. My father always had these E-Class Mercedes-Benz, so he owned his own business. One year we're driving a Mercedes-Benz, the next year we're driving a Mercury Lynx. It
Okay.
went with ebbs and flows of the construction business.
That's funny.
So I always understood that very well, and we'd talk openly about it, and there was no shame either way, or not too much pride either. Motorcycle, my mother always, I can't even remember the exact model because I'm not a rider, but my parents rode Harleys.
Nice.
And I would hop on my mother's because I knew I could handle it. And just 2 o'clock in the morning when they're sound asleep, I was out ripping around the neighborhood. And I knew better than to get on the big boy, so I'd stay on the smaller bike. And
That's all right. That's all right. That's cool. That's funny that you were ripping it around late at night when we're sleeping. All right, last one. What's something people always assume about you that's not true?
I think people assume that they mistake my kindness for weakness, but it's a lesson they learn pretty quickly, I think.
It's a great answer, Pete.
Kindness for weakness. That's definitely solid topic. All right, man. Pete, before the data, let's get into your roots. Where did you grow up and what kind of kid were you?
I grew up in northern New York, where I am now. Glens Falls, New York, Lake George, Saratoga Springs area.
Oh,
Lake George is so awesome.
It is awesome. So we spent time on the lake in the summers. We had a little 14-foot grummy flat bottom aluminum boat and a 10 horsepower Honda motor that we would get out there. And my stepfather owned a pallet manufacturing business. So we had the sawmill to ourselves on the weekends.
Ooh.
And we cut this giant disc out of plywood, and we would no mounts, no bindings on it or anything. You just use the friction and the pressure from the water to stay on the board. And we would do 360s and jumps and all this kind of stuff on a piece of plywood. And that's how I learned to water ski and kneeboard and all that, was with a piece of plywood.
So proud of that. How we grow up, man, with the smallest and the dumbest things and that entertained us for forever, man, and what we created out of them.
For hours.
Yeah, and now these kids, man, you give them like this badass toy, and for 3 seconds they're happy, and then they're on to the next thing.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And a lot of street hockey, the neighborhood kids. And I was not a troublemaker, but in hindsight, today I'd be a troublemaker because we would have BB gun fights. And I can remember getting shot through a school bus window one time, and one of the older kids was waiting for me at this bus stop, and stuff you'd end up in jail for today.
Right.
But
Did you grow up? Would you grow up Islanders, Sabres, Rangers?
Good question.
Who were you rooting for?
the Rangers. And, interestingly, the Detroit Red Wings, because we had their farm team, AHL farm team here in Glens Falls.
That's right.
In the 80s. So I was a Red Wings fan, but in later years became more of a Rangers fan.
Yeah, the Red Wings of the 90s, man, which is such a great team to watch too, man. That was a lot of fun for hockey.
And all those guys came through Glens Falls, so it was really cool.
That's amazing. Hey, early on, were you more drawn to people and selling or systems and structure?
Selling, for sure.
Is that because your dad owned his own business, he was responsible for a lot of the contracts, and you were his sidekick?
I think that's probably true. Yeah, I would travel to a lot of his sales calls and listen to the importance of relationships and just not transactional. I never looked at anything as a transaction, but more of a relationship that everyone wins in that relationship, and there's a benefit to everyone involved. And you can always find that if you really are sincere in what you're trying to accomplish. And I enjoy that. It comes naturally to me. I don't really think in a transactional way. It's much more of how can we benefit each other, and just naturally has worked for me. I've gotten good at process out of necessity, and I'm also very good at delegating it now that I have that opportunity to delegate some of those things to someone that's better at it than I am.
Game changer.
Cool.
Yeah. Pete, take us briefly into your schooling and then the first real job that changed your course for the future.
Okay, that's a good one. I went to St. Bonaventure University in Western New York, south of Buffalo. Bonnie's, go Bonnie's. And went into marketing. Again, we were talking about my father. He encouraged me to get a marketing degree. I didn't even know what that meant, but I do now. It just means from advertising to sales and all the things that make a business work. It starts with marketing. Got out of college, went head west, young man, to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and got a job
Wow.
as a
Oh,
river guide on the Snake River in the
oh my
national
God.
park. And
Beautiful.
could have done that for life for sure.
Yeah.
I had a lot of people dragging me away, kicking and screaming.
Fly fishing?
Fly fishing, yep,
Beautiful.
Man, that's
fly
That-
killer. Be in your 20s and be out there in nature like that. That's
unbelievable,
insane.
Jackson Hole of all
unbelievable.
places.
I know
Gorgeous.
Yeah,
that place is so freaking awesome.
unbelievable. Like it was the best year of my life thus far for sure. But I came back to this neck of the woods and had that marketing degree, right? So
Yeah.
I went and knocked at the door at the local newspaper when newspapers were still big, and went to the advertising director and asked for a job. And they plugged me in with a headset and a phone, and I was doing classified ads the next day, and
Man.
realtors calling in and people with lost puppies and all kinds of stuff, and learned the business. And ultimately, I was the advertising director, and I handled all the automotive business and advertising before you could email proofs, and it was running back and forth to dealerships and here getting ad copy together, taking pictures of cars, putting them in the ads day in, day out. So I learned the car business. I thought I had really learned it, but I just learned the very surface of it. But that's what brought me into automotive and ultimately power sports as well, was that
Nice.
advertising life.
Because you've been around the media, the sales, the marketing at this point in time. You're learning the gist of everything going through this company. If you had to sum up that early chapter of your life before we move forward in one sentence, what was it really teaching you personally?
It taught me responsibility and giving a lot of responsibility, and the importance of delivering on what you are asked to do or what you have promised to do, and following through and delivering something above and beyond what the expectation was. I know that was more than one sentence, but
No, but that makes a lot of sense. Thanks
So-
for answering that.
Before the next official scripted question, I have to ask you, there is a post where you mentioned the classified ads. There's this post from years ago of this reporter visiting a man at his house who is selling his house on the classifieds. And in the ad, it says no Asians. Have you ever seen this?
gosh, it sounds familiar, but to
Oh.
remind me of the rest of
I'll
it.
send it to you after the show. It long short, they go out. It's this rural guy, and back then you phoned your classifieds in, and he's, hey, what can I help you with? And he goes on and with this actual reporter, and then they discover it was just his accent on the phone. He was saying no agents.
No agents, no agents.
It's
That's funny.
I'm sure lots of listeners have seen that one. That one went crazy viral.
That is great.
Yeah.
That was an interesting time. There was one realtor that would call that everyone would watch to see who would pick up the call, and we'd all listen. The SPCA, this one call would come in to try to get pets adopted.
Mhm.
And the woman was so mean that either you wanted the call because you were ready to get in a fight with someone, or you weren't in the mood, and no one would pick up the call. And
Jeez.
that was the most challenging job I've ever had, honestly, was answering phone calls and placing
Wow.
classified ads.
Of all places to have a mean person, the SPCA
Right?
would be the
Yeah.
least advantageous. That's
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah.
So was there a moment back then when you realized most businesses, again, back then, didn't really know what's working? They were guessing?
Yeah, what's the old adage is 50% of your advertising works, you just don't know which half. That was always the challenge. And that's where the sales side of me, I'd have to get reined in sometimes, because they'd look at the numbers of ad dollars I would generate and be like, felt like I was bilking someone, because I would just build up this groundswell of advertising momentum with my clients. And it was that relationship and trying to conquer something together. It was all in very good faith to try to drive business through the door. And it was very challenging. You'd get something, the oddest things would work sometimes, things that seemed on the surface to be home runs. And you had clients who, no matter how well it worked, didn't want you to know that it worked. They felt like, it was just like, oh, no, that was terrible. Let's run another full page.
But cheaper.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an art for sure.
Hardball.
It's an art, no doubt. Let's get inside the dealership world. First of all, take us into how you got into it. And then when you moved into the dealership operations, what surprised you most about the decisions that were being made?
I got into the advertising world, as we discussed, and one of my automotive clients bought a really more metro market that he had ever been in, and certainly larger market than I was in, closer to the Albany market. And he bought the CJDR store down there, and he asked me to come on full time to help him with his advertising. And it was 08, 09 timeframe where,
Wow, about at the crash too. Right?
yeah. So things were tough. Advertising business was very tough. I really liked him. He is just one of those guys that I gravitated toward. And I've told him he could have opened a chicken farm and I'd be chicken farming right now.
That kind
He's
of
just
guy.
one of those guys. Yeah. What really surprised me when I got into it was how hard it is to eke out a profit some months. It's a huge ups and downs, and it just seems like it's this controlled chaos. And we were selling 200-300 cars a month at a single point.
Was it an OEM dealership or was it used cars?
CJDR, Chrysler, Jeep, Dodge, Ram.
Oh, price. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, got it.
And Ram got hot. Jeep got really hot during that time from 2010 to 2020.
Yep.
And we're doing tons of volume, but chasing this number from the factory. And I just couldn't believe how you would come right up against the last day of the month to determine whether or not you were going to turn a profit. All those moving parts, hundreds of cars, 90, 100 employees. The hours are crazy. And it was just such a chaotic scene. And I just couldn't believe how you'd come up to the 11th hour on the last day and needed like 2 more cars to decide whether you were going to make money that month. It floored me. And no one has any understanding of that unless you've been in the business.
That's right.
Makes
Or
sense.
they won't believe you if you told them. They're not going to believe this if they haven't been in the business.
That insight's really interesting. What were dealers obsessing about? This is a fun question. What were dealers obsessing about in that time frame that in hindsight really didn't matter?
That is a great question. I think things like the lot being lined up perfectly, no removal. If it was going to snow, it was a 2-day discussion before the snow, an event moving the snow, and then a day putting all the cars back. And if it snowed 2 or 3 days in a row, it was like that was the whole week. That was like all we talked about and all we did. And it happens every year, guys. And we've got a process. Let's just focus on the task at hand. I couldn't believe how a weather event took everyone's focus off of what they should be doing.
That's wild. And us flatlanders down here don't have to worry about that weird white stuff you call snow or whatever. I got a fun question for you, and this is off script again, but all of us have driven by car dealerships or whatever kind of dealerships, and they do certain things. For example, like you'll drive by and all of the hoods are popped in the front row, or they've got balloons tied to every single vehicle. Do you have any kind of insight or data into those funny, quirky things that actually have been shown to work? Or do you have like just a general idea, this does work, this doesn't?
It's funny. We just laugh. We'd always, when we were blowing up the balloons in the back room, we'd be like, balloons sell cars. We'd always just laugh about it. But it's almost like you do it for internally. It's to get the team excited.
Morale boost. That makes sense.
Morale boost. It was like you drive by a place 100 times on your to and from work. People do notice things. You put out cars, bikes out in the front yard. They notice that. But it was more for the team, in my opinion, to feel like there was an event.
Yeah.
And we're all coming together for a common purpose because you spend so many hours there together.
Sure. I never thought about that side.
Yeah, that was always my feeling.
Cool.
Pete, let me ask you this. Now you're into this dealership world. Was there specific frustrations where you thought there has to be a better way to see this? as you were going through this? I know that the person that recruited you to come with them was a mentor for you. So obviously he probably listened to your voice when you spoke. But what were some of the things that you started seeing as the dealership life? You got more and more experience into it, where there was some maybe frustrations or maybe trying to find better ways to do things?
Reporting, that's a
Mm.
nice segue into what we do here today,
Yep.
was how difficult it was to get metrics out of the DMS or the CRM or whatever tools we were using. They'd all have this library of reports that were almost had part of what you were looking for, and it would take hours to get the information out and then
Gosh.
format it in a way that was useful. And you quickly see why it doesn't get done if you don't have the right tools. That's what got me into building out the reporting systems that we have today, was just how hard it was to get that information that's vital to making informed decisions. And I was just surprised that with all the technology and all the investment and development that went into these DMSs and CRMs, that they built reports. There was volumes of reports, but they were not useful. So they were built by people that didn't understand the industry.
Yeah,
And that was apparent to me. And
It's crazy.
it was crazy. It still is crazy. Most of the vendors don't understand the retail space.
that makes sense. Yeah. Well, let's get into the problems that a proper understanding of data and the correct data actually solves and why data matters. So for listeners who glaze over when they hear the word data, why should they actually care?
First and foremost, a scorecard in its simplest form drives results. Human beings, even people that aren't motivated by competition, are naturally competitive. And when there's a scorecard of everyone that you work with and your name's on it,
Right.
your instinct is to want to be higher up on
Yeah.
that list, regardless
Right.
of what you tell yourself and tell others. So keeping score is just a good way to lift all ships. And I think just on the surface, in its simplest form, that's what data does. It gives people something to measure their results. When you're keeping score, everyone knows the boss is keeping score, but more importantly, where you stack up among your peers. And you can look at people that you're working with and know how they're performing. Hey, what are you doing that I'm not doing? How can I learn
Yes.
from you? How can you
Yeah.
help me be better? And it just creates a better work environment too. And when you have to address something with an employee, you're talking about facts. It takes the emotion out of those discussions as much as you can. Because generally, when you're trying to coach someone that's underperforming, you don't want it to be anecdotal. You don't want it to be a subjective conversation. You just want to talk about, here's where you're at, and here's where we need you to be, and here's how we're going to measure your success going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. I've worked with a lot of companies who I've gone on site in a consultancy sort of role, and a lot of the probably all of the most successful companies that I've been into and seen behind the curtain, I will notice that they've got their top performer guys, and in the room they'll have the leaderboard and the different metrics and stats going by, scrolling on the screen, and I'll pay attention to that for a second. And then as I stay for the rest of the day, I'll find that a lot of the lower performing guys, along with new hires, but especially the guys who've been here for a while, performing at the worst of the group, they'll actually instruct them to go and shadow the guys who are the top performers. And then you're getting that trickle down effect. And that in and of itself is good for, if it's a commission based role, it's great for that other person who's learning, but it's great for the bottom line too, because you're picking up, like you mentioned, rising tides, raising all ships. And that's huge, invaluable for business owners as well as employees.
Yeah. I was saying earlier in a discussion where you really take a look at the opportunities you already have of customers, and you got your sales force and you've got these customers coming in. Are you really maximizing those opportunities? You looked at it like you're burning through them if you're not putting your best effort into each customer that walks through the door. And I'm
Yeah,
not
sure.
talking strictly profit, but obviously that's why you're there at the end of the day. So are you just burning through them to chase a number in volume, or are you really making sure that each one of those opportunities have the best experience? Each customer has the best experience when they're with you, so they come back.
Yep.
Repeat business and retention, because that's important, because you may not get them back if that doesn't go well. And there's not an infinite number of people coming through your door. So slowing down, making sure your processes are proper, and using data to ensure that and measure where is that threshold of maximization, and as each customer having that maximum optimum experience, and is the store getting the maximum result.
Yeah.
That's in sales, that's in parts and service, and just to churn through them to chase a volume number, you're doing damage, and you're those people aren't necessarily coming back to the door, and it's not an infinite supply.
Yeah.
This transitions nicely into this next question I wanted to ask you was, what's the most common lie dealerships tell themselves when they look at these reports?
Well, what I find is, I was just looking at a post of our quarterly. We do a quarterly snapshot of a composite of our dealer body. And I was looking at some comments on the metrics, and they're probably not including this, or they might not be measuring that, and looking for reasons why their numbers don't align with the national numbers.
Yep.
Oh, they must be including fees, or just things like that, where not acknowledging that they might be underperforming compared to the national numbers, and looking for excuses rather than looking for solutions.
Right.
It is a hard look at yourself and your systems, and a willingness to improve, acknowledging that you're not perfect, acknowledging that there's areas of opportunity, and putting the resources into correcting those. That's what the successful dealers do, successful humans for that matter. And not justifying reasons why you're not hitting those numbers is what I see a lot. And what is the truth? What are the actual factual numbers? And I see a lot of battling over why those numbers must not be real. And there's real can be. We strip out all the fees. We have a real clear level scorecard of what's going on in the industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Quick to potentially make excuses rather than self-analyze and see where the opportunities are. Yeah.
What's up, One Gang? I used to think that if I spent big money on riding gear with a logo on the back, I was getting top quality. I gave Leather Up a shot. I wasn't sure at first, could I really get quality gear without spending a fortune? But after putting tens of thousands of miles on their jackets and vests, I had my answer. No busted zippers, no loose stitching, just solid, well-made gear that lasts. Leather Up carries trusted brands like Milwaukee Leather, Hot Leathers, and more, with gear for every rider and every budget. Plus, their customer service actually cares and picks up the phone, something rare these days. So do yourself a favor, check out leatherup.com. Whether you need jackets, vests, chaps, boots, helmets, or luggage, they've got you covered. And because you're part of the One Gang Worldwide family, use code CW20 at checkout for 20% off your entire order. Stop overpaying, gear up with Leather Up, and see the difference yourself.
This is a fun question. When data is misunderstood, what may surprise people about what the actual cost of that misunderstanding can be? Obviously, you got time, people, all those different pieces, but what could be surprising to people about mismanaged or misunderstood data?
What always surprises me is how much a small change multiplied out over volume and time can make such a huge impact to the bottom line. An extra $20 or $30 a copy over time adds up tremendously. And so many people measure a salesperson. Just for example, a salesperson's success might be primarily measured on number of units sold. And without looking at the rest of the picture, a guy doing half the volume might be doing nearly double the profitability.
Right.
And if that guy doing the volume could do that, what we consider a second tier performer in volume, if he could do his numbers and profitability, it quickly adds up to thousands and thousands of dollars in just a month's time. And just to stop, and I mentioned the scorecard earlier, but when dealers just stop there and let's get a scorecard out there, if everyone lifts their performance $30, $40 a copy, a unit, it can make the difference in
it adds up. Absolutely.
And like you mentioned, Pete, you've got the guys who maybe aren't doing the volume, but they could potentially be taking care of the customer in a much better way as well. So they're more likely to get that repeat return customer.
That's exactly right.
All right, let's get into the building of Vision AST. When did Vision AST stop being an idea and start feeling like a real risk that you were going to take? And also, before we get into that, for people who are unfamiliar with Vision AST, please tell us what your company is, what it does, and what it helps dealerships with.
Yeah, so what is Vision AST? We are a SaaS platform. That means we're hosted in the cloud and easily accessible on any device. And that addresses one of the challenges of a lot of DMSs, at least historically, with having to be in the dealership to access the DMS. Our data is available anywhere, anytime. But what we do is we pull performance metrics from the DMS. So we cut out all the other data that comes through with a deal. There's a lot of extraneous information that you don't have to weed through. We weed through it for you, essentially, and just give you the metrics that you need to know. And what's important is that we do it in near real time, like literally updating our database on an hourly basis. So you really have a real-time snapshot of what's happening in your dealerships. With a single login, you can be looking at one store, you can be looking at 100 stores.
That's
and really get a 30,000 foot view or drill down to an individual's performance, literally just clicking around in a 5-minute exercise. So we give that ability to just dive into real time performance in your stores, in your group, enterprise level, whatever it is that's important to you at the moment. And the enhancements to that are endless of things that are coming down the pike, and we can get into that later. But what we do is just give that visibility into dealers' performance, both in sales and F&I, but also in parts and service. So you really have a quick view of what's going on in the moment. So you can make mid-course decisions and not be looking back in the traditional way where you say, okay, let's look at what happened last month.
Yeah.
And you're halfway through the next month and you're really obviously only focused on the time you're in, and looking back is a seldom done exercise. So we bring it to you so you're looking at it in the moment, and putting a spotlight on that keeps you performing at an optimum level. So that's what we do. And when did it get real? I would say right around 2020, I left the dealership and got into this full time, and we brought the platform to market. And that's when the real risk started, of course. I think that was a nature question. And that's when we really got out there in front of people and started getting early adopters and learning what was important. And really, when we made the shift from automotive into power sports and got some thought leaders involved in giving us their thoughts on what was important, how the business is different from automotive, and it's significantly different. They're obviously have a lot of similarities, but a lot of nuanced differences too.
Sure.
So how transactions are measured, multiple units, parts and accessories, attachments, and even the way the service department works, where the parts department is such a more prominent piece of the fixed ops department than it is in automotive. Most times parts is like a necessary thing, evil, where in power sports, parts is front and center, and some of those nuances and having people guide us through that. And we're still doing that today. We still have some thought leaders in the space that give us insight as to what they think is important, and things we were reporting that finally someone said, hey, it's great, but no one looks at that. And so we kind of a few things that we thought were important that no one really looks at. So getting to learn some of those things in power sports has been fun.
Was there a huge difference between auto and power sports as you were building this?
Some significant differences. There's things that car dealers unless they have a big wholesale business, as an example, I was talking about parts. Unless they have a big wholesale parts business, they don't look at the parts department separately. They don't look at over the counter parts. But in power sports, obviously, over the counter parts is significant. So, really being able to drill down into some of those parts metrics is much more important on the power sports side. Another big differentiator, dealers in the automotive space don't really look at gross margin percentages. They look at dollars and profit, where on the power sports side, we're much more often talking about gross margin percentages on units.
Interesting.
So some of those differences are interesting, and it makes sense. You might be looking at, take an RV dealer, there's 100,000, 250, $1 million units, and there's $10,000 units. So looking at gross profit on the unit itself is really not an effective measurement, but more importantly, the gross margin percentage on the unit is something that's relative to transaction.
Yeah.
Nice.
Very interesting. Pete, what was harder, building the product or proving the value to people who needed it?
I thought that building the platform would be harder, but as it turns out, proving the value was a little more challenging.
Really?
And yeah, it really surprised me on the power sports side that more people weren't looking at these metrics and didn't know how to, didn't know what was important. They were leading much more by instinct and gut than true metrics. And when we get in front of people, it all makes sense and it comes together. But there is now, there wasn't a groundswell of people seeking it out. But that has changed considerably in the last 5 years. I would say post-COVID, the demand for data and metrics has grown considerably on the power sports side of things. But that surprised me. I thought it was it came so naturally to me that I thought everyone felt that way.
Why do you think COVID, sorry to interrupt you, but I'm curious before you glaze right over it, why do you think COVID had that impact? Was it people started gearing towards the virtual world and realizing the importance of it, and so they started analyzing those things more closely? Or what do you think led to that increase related to COVID?
I do think it was that there was a few things. One was accessing the data remotely. I think that was a big thing where people might not be in the store as much. Certainly, part of our business is with TPAs and agents, warranty providers that sell their warranties and their products through an F&I department, and having remote access to that data became more important than their traditional ways of stopping in the store to print me out a deal log. That became more difficult to do for a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think initially with lower volume, it slowed things down, and chasing volume went away for a little while. And it was much more being able to slow down, focus on the specifics of what we're doing here. What are we doing with each transaction? Are we maximizing what's happening? Do we even have an F&I office? Should we have an F&I office?
Right.
What does that look like? And I think it just changed the dynamic there. For a brief period of time, things slowed down, and good operators really focused on putting better systems in place. And I think that made a difference.
Interesting.
Pete, what's something you got wrong early that forced you to rethink the platform? And also, was there a moment where you questioned whether this would actually work?
Yes. I believe early on, I felt like what seemed obvious to me in terms of what would be the logical format for presenting the data, I didn't realize that people would be so ingrained and entrenched in the way the people that did use the data, the low-hanging fruit, the early adopters were people that already did somehow pull metrics out of their DMS, put them in spreadsheets, share them with their team, coach and train using those numbers. And I didn't realize, even though we came along with a faster, easier, more accurate way to do this, it wasn't in a format they were used to, perhaps. And getting them to adopt a different format, I didn't think there would be so much friction there. but it would always be like, geez, if the rows were columns and the columns were rows, I would love this.
Yeah.
And we get hung up on stuff like that. And I did not foresee that. So we're in the middle of a rewrite of everything that allows for a tremendous amount of customization. As crazy as it seems, that's going to open a ton of doors for us, for all those people that need to format it the way they want it. And that's fine. But we're in that place today where technology makes that a lot easier, where it's the format and the user interface is driven by the user rather than the developer.
Yes.
And we've fully embraced that opportunity. So I'm excited about it now, but I did not see that coming at all.
Makes sense. Yeah. What part of running a SaaS or software as a service, for people who are unfamiliar, what part of a SaaS company or running a SaaS company do people completely underestimate?
The difficulty in getting people to engage in the platform early. So let's just say a dealer principal says, hey, I love this reporting and we're going to put it in our stores and you're going to train all my people and they're going to use it. If you don't get all those people on board early on and using the platform and really dialed in to making it part of their daily or at least weekly process,
Yeah.
60 days go by, you're not going to overcome that. And you get that lag of getting those people on board and using the platform early. It's very difficult to regroup and get that momentum. That momentum starts as soon as the dealer principal or GM says, yes, let's go. If you don't get that adoption really early among his team, it's very difficult to hit the reset button. It's almost too late after 45 or 60 days.
Yeah. So it's all about adoption.
Yes, very much. And you can't just call and say, hey, how's it going? Are you using the platform? You really need structured. Day 3, we're going to talk about this. Day 10, we're going to call back and get something on the calendar to talk about this. Really have that structure. And building out those processes was learning trial by fire, just failing a lot and before we got it right.
Yeah.
But it's now the fun part is getting people engaged and adopting the platform and teaching them the tricks and the amount of data that's there and the insights that sit there. That some find on their own because they're really savvy and some would never find without your help. But that's really fun when they have that aha moment. And
Yeah.
holy
it does
cow,
this?
that's cool. Yeah. That is so rewarding. And then you've got a customer potentially for life.
Yeah. That's cool.
How are you handling being the one expected to have the clarity when you're still evolving in a lot of things?
I've got a very good team around me and communicating, and I work hard at this all the time, is communicating where I'm at, where my focus is, and what's important to me, and also listening for the same information back from them, and really always understanding where everyone is with tasks, priorities, responsibilities, making sure we're all sensitive to that and having each other's back and not just dumping. I don't send Kayla's our director of operations, and she's always got 100 things on her plate. And I don't just send her stuff because it's interesting. I send it if it's relative to what she's doing at the moment, or I'll save it if there's a better time for me to share it with her. It might be important, but not this week. And I won't just dump it on her to figure out. I'll strategically share things at the right time. And they bring things to me, Kyle, Kayla, and the rest of the team, when they know I'm focused on something. Hey, I know you're really thinking about this right now, or you're really working on this with a client. I saw this and thought it might be interesting, or here's some extra data to back up your conversation. And, that's powerful and really keeps us all rowing in the same direction. And it's communication all the time. We don't over communicate, but we try to. We endeavor to over communicate. And that doesn't mean 1,000 emails going out. It's communicating the right message at the right time to the right people.
Yeah.
It's amazing from us being on this side of on the desk, hearing about this stuff, how much work is actually continually going into this on a daily basis, even though you have a product that has been proven to work the right way, where you're consistently still tweaking it and working on it and making it better. It's really cool to see, man. You guys, I've met your team. You've got a hell of a team. So Keep up the amazing
Yeah,
work.
thanks, man. That means a lot to me. Nothing means more to me than the team, and that when we're all clicking, which is most of the time lately, it really just feels good in our customers' experience that our clients feel that and experience it. And without question, if I got 10 pieces of feedback from clients, 9 of them are about the team and their experience by
That's
name.
awesome.
Gianna was great. Reagan just knocked it out of the park. That's always the feedback we get. Rarely is it about the platform. It's about the people and the experience they had with us.
Yeah.
Very cool, man.
So, Pete, speaking broadly, what's one number dealerships stare at way too much and maybe one that they ignore a little bit too much?
I think too often we stare at volume numbers, how many units went over the curb. And there's a lot of reasons for that. I'm not discounting the fact that that's important.
Yeah.
But in theory, that could be a very poor measurement of success, especially now with front end margins being so tight. If you're not making profit in the back end and F&I, every unit might be costing you money. We were in a point in the auto side pre-COVID where we were doing numbers to chase the factory bonus. And in our platform, without the bonus in there, every unit we sold, we were losing $2,000.
Man,
So if we were measuring our success by volume and by unit,
it wouldn't be success.
no, it was a bad way to go. What's most important is looking at let's talk about F&I profitability, for example. The dollars are important, but also the product mix. Are you offering something of value to your customers that's going to keep them coming back to you? Are they protected? Is their purchase protected properly? Of course, is that profitable to you? But a good mix that's representing the interests of your customers in a profitable way is much more important than just that volume or unit count number.
Definitely. Cool. That makes sense.
Pete, what separates dealerships that use data well from those that just collect it?
The ones that use data well are forward thinking. I think they're they're the ones that drive the future of the industry. They're the ones that are taking things to the next logical step in the evolution of the industry. And they're not just riding by the seat of their pants, because the ones riding by the seat of their pants, when things go south, the market tightens up, they're the first ones out because they're not prepared. They're not structured where you can turn that volume spigot up and down. Each of those transactions are still profitable. When you're doing well, just on the good times, by the seat of your pants, the reckoning will come. And those guys and gals that are using data effectively, that means they're watching in real time.
Yeah.
And they're acutely aware of what's happening in their store, in the greater market, and can shift quickly as market conditions ebb and flow.
That's compared to the older way of doing it where you have a bi-weekly, heaven forbid, you have multiple stores and you have a bi-weekly managers meeting and you're reacting to data that's 2 weeks old.
Yeah, and that's still, unfortunately, we still see that far too often.
That's still happening everywhere. Yeah, a lot of dealerships are still like this.
And there's no reason for it.
Right. Yeah, especially with all the solutions out like Vision AST. What's a failure you're grateful for now, even though it really stunk at the time?
Yeah, our database 2 years ago now was not only not structured well, but we built things with a bunch of temporary tables, and I won't bore people with development lingo, but
I'd like to hear it after the show.
it made sense. It made sense for the functionality of the platform until Amazon Web Services said, "Hey, we're no longer supporting temporary tables," and everything just crumbled and slowed down to a crawl. And there wasn't a quick fix, but we were small enough at the time that it was only impacting a couple hundred clients and not thousands.
Yeah.
We learned a ton from that and have built a moat around any kind of problems like that ever happening again. So
Nice.
I'm glad it happened when it did.
That's stressful, man.
Oh,
for sure, man.
awful.
Extremely. Pete, what lessons did the dealership world teach you that no tech startup book ever could?
I learned the challenges of staying focused and putting processes in place with all the distractions that happen in a retail environment. I used to be able to, and I still can do it, but I don't have to do it as much, is to have 2 or 3 customers in the showroom. The F&I office is 3 people deep at the end of the month. Service is backed up with customer complaints and phone calls you have to return, and you still have to run the business on a larger scale at the same time. And you can only learn that in that environment. It's like going to war, and that is such a intense scene that you don't get in a SaaS environment in an office. You're just at the other end of a phone. And in retail, you've got real live people coming through the door that don't care what you're working
Yeah.
on. They don't care that you need to get a report done. They don't care that payroll's due in an hour.
Right.
They
That's
care
right.
about themselves and why they're there. Their bike doesn't start, or they needed new skis on their sled. They
Yeah.
don't care about the rest of it. So learning to
That's right.
always put the client first, regardless of your own personal responsibilities and challenges, and working in that chaos environment and bringing control to that chaos is something that still works very well for me today.
Nice. Nice. Great answer, man.
Pete, looking back, what aspect of the company or problem that it solves are you most proud of building with your team?
Presently, we are rewriting the platform. I mentioned it briefly to bring not only a ton of customization capabilities, and also bringing a lot of AI tools into the functionality of the platform and the user interface, but also
Major.
some AI tools behind the scene. But we all did a really good job of keeping track of the feedback we got from our clients going
Okay.
back 3-4 years,
Active listening.
and bringing that into the development of this rewrite.
That's
And
huge.
one of the conversations was, you remember so and so said they really would like the ability to see these 2 things side by side. I remember saying, geez, that person was never a client. No, but they said they would be if we could do that. And it was like 2 years ago, and someone kept track of it, and we kept it front and center. So our ability to listen and respond the best way we can is a differentiator. I don't think every company does that, and the team does an awesome job of that. We are just totally inspired by our client base and our prospects and what people are looking for. And we really take that lead. Even though most of my team does have in dealership experience, we don't act like we know the answers. We want to hear what people are looking for and take it very seriously and implement as much of it makes sense. And we're striking a balance between 330 300 different opinions and trying to find those common threads that run through them to bring the best possible solution to the masses.
Yeah. Cool.
I love what I've been hearing as you've been talking throughout this podcast. You don't really, one of the things I love about you guys is the fact that you're talking about the solutions you can provide, but you're mainly talking about listening, getting more understanding, hitting all the trouble points that these dealers are going through at this point in time. I think that's a sign of a company that actually listens and does the right things for the industry. So that's awesome to hear. We're going to be closing this out, but I wanted to get into a couple of questions before we finish up. One, what do you hope dealers actually feel when they finally understand their numbers?
I hope they feel like they're in a great industry, they've got a great business, and they can make changes, modifications to their processes immediately to see tangible results in a very short period of time. That there are tools to improve what you're already doing that don't require major overhauls oftentimes. It often just requires visibility, awareness, and a desire to improve. And when you've got real metrics to measure that improvement, there's resources out there. And it really just excites us to be able to contribute to that and bring that visibility to the information that's already there and show people how to use it to their benefit.
For dealers listening who kind of feel overwhelmed by data and decisions, what's the first and simple step they should take as far as with you. I want them to be able to have that open line of communication. What would you recommend them to do?
I'd recommend that they go on our website, visionast.com. You can contact us every possible way there. We answer the phone. We reply to emails almost immediately, and you can chat with us there. But contact us, and we'll walk quickly through the platform with you and show you the
That's cool.
quick wins. And I think the quick wins are what's important because they come from the scorecard I talked about. Let's just start with showing all your performers where they stand against each other and where they stand against the industry. That can happen in the first 30 days. You'll see improvement immediately
That's
from
great.
that scorecard phenomenon we talked about, and just
Yep.
get started there. There's instant, you don't need to dive into the numbers and training and coaching to get results. The visibility creates results on their own. And then you can massage it from there as you learn the numbers in the platform and where you need to put your focus. You'll find your struggles if you don't know them already. Sometimes they become more glaring when you actually see the numbers, and they might be bigger problems than you thought, or they might be not a problem you thought they were, and they're not even a problem, and you're focused on the wrong thing.
Yeah.
But get the early win with the scorecard, and that happens right away. Like literally from the time we talk to the time you're looking at your own information with 2 years of historical data, we're talking 5 to 7 days.
That's crazy.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. That's awesome. Where can people follow you? Where can people, I know you said the Vision AST website, which we're going to link everything to the notes. Where are you guys on social media? Where people can kind of tune in, follow the latest and greatest things you guys are putting
Yeah,
out
at
there.
Vision AST on LinkedIn is probably the best spot where we share the most in-depth content. We are on Facebook and Instagram and all those things, but LinkedIn is where we really get granular on information. We share a lot of information we just pass along. We just post our quarterly reports of what transpired in the fourth quarter of last year. People like Mark Sheffield are giving their commentary on the numbers and good
Nice.
content there.
Mark's
And I suggest you just follow our page there, and myself as well. I share a lot of it. We share a lot of our case studies and white papers there too. And get on our email list. You can sign up on our website too. We share an email every month. It's a newsletter that has links to important articles, good content. Kyle Reed and Mark Sheffield have a podcast, Kickstands Up, raw and unscripted, that you can catch episodes on YouTube and where you watch your podcast or listen to your podcast, actually. And that's got a lot of good interviews coming soon and a lot of good content there. They keep them short and sweet, like 10 minutes or less, just quick hitting thoughts of the day. And you're in, you're out, and you got something to go to work with.
I know, to end this podcast, where is your vision for your company in 5 years? Where is Vision AST?
I would like Vision AST to be almost akin to a 20 club or 20 group, virtually online, where dealers don't need to pull these composites together and go the travel and time invested in those 20 groups. Let's have it in real time. We can just have an AI in our chat agent that we're building into the platform is going to allow us to have real time composite of our entire data where you can drill down just to Harley or just to Honda or BRP, whatever it is. You'll be able to drill down to the entire deal body metrics of just information that's relevant to your dealerships and not have to invest in all that time and travel. Nothing against those clubs. I want to support them too. But in the interim between those meetings, why wait for those meetings to get into? Let's get into it every day in real time.
Very cool.
We love what you guys are doing. This is the beauty of what Ben and I are fortunate enough to experience, is to have entrepreneurial minds like yours that come from the industry and bring things in to help these dealers be more proficient, work better, faster, smarter, the whole 9 yards. And love to see the progression of Vision AST as we go. So keep up the amazing work. I know we highlighted your team. You guys do have an excellent team. So any dealer listening, check these guys out, man. This is one of the companies that will make a huge difference into what you guys do on a day-to-day basis and make you guys a lot better. So Pete, thank you so much from the bottom of our hearts, man. coming on the show, brother. Been excited to hear, find out more about what your organization does and that creative mind of yours of putting this whole thing together. So thank you so much.
Thank you guys so much. Ben, Serge, you guys are killing it. You're doing an awesome job.
Thanks, Pete.
Flattered that you asked me to come on. I love the questions and love the conversation. I know we'll talk again soon.
Yes, sir. And one
100%.
last thing to add for the audience, you guys, I have to compliment your website. I'm in web development and that's my background. For a SaaS company, you guys check all the boxes so well that so many miss on your website. Anybody out there who's interested in Vision AST, lots of times people will be a little apprehensive about booking a demo, but your website does an awesome job of displaying features, client results, all that stuff. I was blown away by your website. So anybody listening out there, you can get a really good feel for what Vision AST does and who they are just by going to the website. Great job on that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That's great feedback. And that's the idea. We're not a high pressure sales organization. We're just trying to support an industry that is fun, exciting, a passionate group of people, good, solid people. And we're trying to make it easy and be a part of it as much as we can be.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Pete.
Awesome, man.
Appreciate you.
Thanks, Pete. Our paths will cross soon.
Cool. Thanks, guys.